Equilibrium, a state of perfect balance. Isn't that something we all seek in our life? But what does equilibrium look like in an impact-driven space? This is where corporate social responsibility comes in, where it seeks a balance between the people, the planet, and the profit. But how does one measure the impact of businesses on all three aspects? We at Sambodhi have found stories to be the best way to capture both intangible and tangible impacts. To this end, we bring to you a conversation series called CSR Unplugged, where we are joined with industry experts and leaders from the CSR space. Today, we are joined by Maya Vengurlekar, who is the COO of CRISIL Foundation. Join us as we delve deeper into the nuances of the work they do. Thank you so much, Maya. It's a pleasure to host you in this podcast.
Thank you. My pleasure as well.
So the first question that I'd like to ask is, CRISIL is quite prominent in the financial sector. What is really interesting is that you have used what you're good at and you have translated that into the CSR space, where you're working with rural women in rural communities and helping them be financially included, specifically in Assam and Rajasthan. Why women? And why specifically these geographical areas?
So just to step back a bit, as you said that, CRISIL is trying to leverage what we are good at, to be able to do good. Okay. So much before the CSR and, social sector contribution by the corporate kind of became a very mainstream conversation, CRISIL had developed one index called CRISIL Inclusives. This index actually helps measure the extent of financial exclusion at a district level. So this was launched in 2013, but the work on this was going on for some time, and we were waiting for the right opportunity to launch it and all that. So almost from 2010 onwards, we had spotted the need or the gap that existed in the overall financial inclusion effort of the country, because everyone, regulators, policymakers, all of them have been very focused on solving this problem for the country as such, from 2005 onwards, but much before that. I would say that RBI, NABARD, Minister of Finance as such were involved towards addressing the financial inclusion problem. But it had not seen the kind of success that it should have, okay? And one of the problems we felt is because we are not measuring the exclusion correctly, okay? And that's why our interventions are not happening in a very focused manner and where they are needed the most. And that's where the whole idea of developing a comprehensive index to measure the level of exclusion came about, and that's how Inclusives happened. It's a district level indicator, and it ranks all the districts in the country, 700 plus districts in the country, in the rank ordering of the extent of financial exclusion. And we had published it, and when the whole CSR intervention for CRISIL started, that was the starting point that we had, okay? And the whole thought was that, okay, we have identified the problem, okay, where as a country we may be doing whatever, good, bad, better, not so good on this financial inclusion aspect. But there are pockets where we are doing very well. There are pockets where we are doing very poorly. Inclusives was highlighting, those pockets. So that was highlighting the problem. So we thought, with CSR intervention, can we also be part of the solution? So that's how the focus on financial capability building and leading to inclusion and all of that. So when we decided that we want to also be part of this solution, we went back to the Inclusives and we saw which are the geographies, which are the districts, okay, which are the regions where this problem is very acute, okay. Because if you look at CRISIL, or for that matter any financial service provider, we don't have manufacturing facility, plants and all of that which would dictate the geography for our CSR intervention. That's not the case with us. So we are agnostic that way. We could work anywhere. Yeah, we saw that Northeast as such, was the lowest performing region at that time. Even now it continues to be so, but at that time the extent was quite severe. So that's how Northeast. Now Northeast again, if we had to really go by the lowest performing districts, then most of the districts, were either in very remote geographies like Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland.
Hard to reach.
Very hard to reach. And also at that time, and we are talking about a couple of years before PMJDY, right? So at that time, the supply side was also not available. They were not present there. And we felt that there is no point of making people aware, okay? But then they're not finding the service providers or the supply side not being there. So it's little bit of, putting the cart before the horse, kind of a situation. And that's where then, we said that while we'll stick to Northeast, we will look at a geography where supply side and other infrastructure is not so much of a challenge, where our intervention in terms of financial awareness, capability building and inclusion effort could lead to something meaningful. So that's how we chose Assam. When we entered Assam, when we did our pilots, okay, we didn't think that, we will only do it for women. Okay, gender was not really something that we had on our mind. Okay, but in those pilots, what we observed is that it's mainly women who were showing interest, who were coming for the program and staying, till the end. Okay, men would come, hang around there for a bit and then leave. Okay, women didn't do that. And that's when we realized that perhaps women are more interested, inclined, and perhaps this intervention is more needed for women. Okay, and therefore we felt that if this is what we are observing, then why not design the entire intervention for women so that it serves its purpose. It's more focused, towards the target group. So that's how we started working with women. After about 15-18 months, when we saw that there are some green shoots of success, we wanted to try out whether similar intervention could also succeed in a geography where social norms were vastly different, particularly in the context of women. Okay, because Assam, you would know that it's more matriarchal society where the social status of women is fairly okay. I mean, gender equation is not that skewed. Okay. But there are various other states in the country where gender equation could be very, very unfavorable for women. We chose Rajasthan, again, because infrastructure, governance, physical infrastructure in terms of connectivity and all of that, fairly good. But at the same time, gender equation was unfavorable for women. And Rajasthan also scored, particularly few districts in Rajasthan also scored pretty low on the inclusives. So that's how Rajasthan. Though initially it was more because we saw that only women were interested in the program, we decided to orient our program towards women. And we need to understand that. Okay, what I saw is that somewhere women associate their self-worth with their ability to manage money.
Would you say that that is an unintended impact that...
Unintended impact, or it's understanding your stakeholder better. Okay, we realize that somewhere women are looking at or building this muscle as a tool to achieve more equitable and fair society. Yeah, and that's why there was an element of passion, okay, in their involvement. When they shared their stories, when they expressed their aspirations, we could kind of, there was very strong emotion, okay, associated with money. We also realized that women tend to make decisions very differently. Okay, they're more motivated by immediate needs, their own needs, their households' needs. And they struggle when it comes to slightly medium to long term planning of finances. And that was the element then, we brought into the program. Lastly, which is actually the easier part, that made things a lot easier for us, is that women are very purposeful when it comes to their financial decision making. Okay, and because they are driven with such strong sense of purpose in terms of what they want to do with their money, how do they want to spend it, and all of that, motivating them, to choose right kind of financial behavior and leverage the formal tools was a lot. It became a lot easier.
So what really stood out for me is the sense of self-worth. That was something that is very prominent when you were working in the program. Everything revolves around that. So I would place it as an unintended impact, right? I mean, this was not the focus of the program. The focus of the program was financial inclusion. But this happened. This was a result of it. Are there any more unintended impacts that you have seen while working with these women in Assam and Rajasthan?
Angela, there are several stories. Because it's 8-9 years now since this program has rolled. So there are lots and lots of stories. I was in my office and I received a call from our NGO partner in Assam. Okay, and she said, Maya, we have panchayat elections coming up in Assam, and some of our sakhis want to contest the local elections. Should we allow them? So first of all, I said, who are we, to allow or not allow? But I understood where she was coming from, because, we wanted to, we had very consciously remained politically, agnostic, okay, financial service provider agnostic. We were fiercely guarding the our independence, okay. We didn't want to be seen as agents of a particular thing. So I think more she was coming from that angle when she asked me this question. And I didn't mention to you the Sakhi cadre, but basically when we started the whole community outreach, at some point in time we realized that we need more sustained kind of a hand-holding support infrastructure, and that's how after 2-3 years of the program being implemented, we had brought in the concept of Sakhi, who are our trained community cadre. Okay, so at that point in time we had about little over 450 Sakhis, who were active in Assam. And so when the NGO partner asked me this question, my initial response was that maybe there are 4 or 5 of them, and it's okay. I mean, even if they want to do it, let them do it. So I said I asked her how, कितने हैं ऐसे 4, 5, 10 होंगे तो ठीक है, देख लेते हैं क्या, I mean, what's the how it all unfolds. So she said no, Maya, there are 48 of them.
That's
I was
a huge
like,
number.
what? So this I wasn't really prepared for. So I said, how come so many women want to suddenly contest these elections? I said, do they have some kind of a political association, their family is involved with this kind of thing? She said, maybe 4 or 5 of them, but large majority, they are all first generation, first time. And that's when I felt that there is something that I have missed noticing altogether. And then I said, इसको बहुत interest से देखना चाहिए क्या होता है आगे. And that's how we said we must not only allow them, we should encourage them and really see what happens. Okay. So all of them contested, 48 of them. 14 of them won the elections. Okay, so a large number of them did not win elections. So that also explains that they didn't have the prior experience or anything like that. But 14 of them won elections. So we respectfully asked them not to exit the program, but still be the advocates, of Sakhi cadre. And in those villages, we brought in new candidates as Sakhis, because we did not want any political figure as our Sakhi. But this was was a very fresh insight for us that the kind of self-confidence, self-image, self-worth that this program was able to build, at least in the Sakhi cadre, who were trained as community leaders, actually kind of helped them to aspire for something like, their political ambition or whatever. So that was very unique, and subsequent to that, we observed similar thing in Rajasthan, repeat in Assam. So, political empowerment is something that we have seen as an unintended outcome. Okay. The other story is from Rajasthan. Okay, one of my field visits, and women were very vocal. Okay, and they were talking a lot about their challenges, and there were also a few men sitting around, and they were listening. Men of the households, basically, those households basically. And then one of the ladies said that ये जो मेरे बगल में बैठी है ना, ये राजपूत है. Okay. पहले ऐसे कभी नहीं होता था कि एक राजपूत और एक मीणा औरत साथ में बैठ के एक मीटिंग में हिस्सा ले रही है. So it took me a while, it took me a couple of moments to really understand, because I have been born, brought up in Mumbai. Okay, so while I understand and I know that caste is a very strong emotion and sentiment and norm, but something like this that people won't even
talk about it in urban area,
participate in a common meeting, was something that I was absolutely not aware of. So she said that there are Gujars, there are Rajputs, there are Meenas, and all of us are sitting together. This has not happened before. Okay, I mean, first and foremost, a Rajput lady wouldn't be allowed to come out of their households to participate in a meeting. So one, that is happening. Two, we are all sitting together. Okay, and our families are not seeing this, so nobody is objecting. So somewhere, this is able to also address, or challenge some of these social norms. We never thought this is what we will be able to achieve, through this program. And again, going back to the point that I made, Angela, that money is a very strong emotion, and for women, it is at a slightly different level, compared to men, because they associate their self-worth, there's passion, there is emotion around this topic of money. So yeah, I mean, these two stories are representative enough. And then there are other interesting stories like, one lady was telling me that, before the program, everybody would refer to me as so-and-so's bahu. Okay.
So-and-so's mother.
Okay. Whereas now, people refer to my husband as ये गुड्डी देवी के पति है. So and she took so much pride. She had a very mischievous kind of tone, when she was telling us this.
So COVID-19 posed as a very challenging time for the whole world. I'm definitely sure even for the program, and specifically the catalysts of the program, that are Sakhis, there might have been a lot of challenges that they faced. So what were the challenges, and how the Sakhis or even the implementers were able to overcome these challenges during this period of time?
I mean, challenges as such were the same. There was fear, anxiety, lockdown kind of, meant that nothing was happening in the field. Okay, so we didn't know what to do, how to support, how to carry on with the program. So that was, the way COVID impacted all of us. It suddenly kind of, put a stop on everything that we knew as, life as normal. Okay, where Sakhis were present was very high. Okay, so that was a great start in terms of Sakhis getting back into action. Okay, while still there was lockdown and all that. Later on, surprisingly, Sakhis didn't just stop at that. Okay, they realized that people are scared, they are confused, they are worried. So they took it upon themselves to extend their role beyond financial and government security and all those kind of activities that so far they were dealing with, But the fact that they had certain information which they could impart and make people feel better equipped to deal with the situation. They extended their role into spreading message about hygiene, social distancing, vaccination. Okay, our Sakhis were quite instrumental in terms of spreading information about oxygen cylinder availability of those, government facilities, where those were set up, how to access those. So all of that, Sakhis really kind of went beyond their defined role to really act as a community resource and someone who could really help in that situation. And that really changed the way our Sakhi saw herself, and the community also saw Sakhi in terms of what she could do for us. And for us, of course, it was a complete revelation in terms of what a cadre like this can potentially do. Okay, so that was a new learning. Secondly, because of all the social distancing, we couldn't actually do the in-person training programs, which earlier was the norm. Okay, every month we would have physical meetings of the Sakhi, where a lot of training, hand-holding and all those conversations would take place. None of that was happening. So we tried doing certain virtual meetings. We were not very sure about it. But this kind of success that we saw in participation of these Sakhis. So all our Sakhis, could participate in these virtual meetings. They were very happy to do that. It was something very new as a medium that they were embracing, so they were very excited. Their family members could see Sakhi in action because she was doing it from home and she was not going somewhere for a meeting. So they could first-hand see that what is, this lady of our house actually does or learns, or what kind of conversations happen in the meetings that she goes and attends on a monthly basis. So the family members also had a very new understanding of what the Sakhi role is all about, and that created a lot of respect for our Sakhis from their own family members. That later on helped, in terms of a lot of encouragement from the family for her to go out and do her role as a Sakhi. And third, for us, all the digital savviness that the Sakhis were showing, we never expected that. So this was something very new for us. And that then gave us a lot of encouragement to bring in scale. Because prior to this, because of a lot of physical nature of the work that we were doing, we were feeling constrained, okay, from a scale point of view. But when we realized that our Sakhis they can be digitally savvy, they can be technologically savvy, virtual medium. So that way, COVID really helped, I would say, enhance the role of Sakhi, our own ability and confidence that we had in our Sakhis, as well as our ability to scale. I think this way COVID was somewhere, I would say, boon in disguise. It really helped us look at our program and our Sakhis in a very different and new light.
So what is really interesting is that, being digitally savvy, even during that period of time, because Assam and Rajasthan, they have very low digital literacy among women, and using that, and you also have Main Pragati app that is part of your
it's a self-learning cum certification app, yeah.
So that also is something that is very unique, because women are interacting with digital media, and that's not restricted to them. It goes beyond, because if their children see their mothers or like their wives if they are using digital media, it just goes beyond into a larger community. So throughout the conversation that we were having, it's quite apparent that the aspirations of women, it has also shifted. So can we talk a little bit about that?
A lot of women want their daughters to pursue IPS.
Why specifically IPS?
I think it's power, what they think is what controls the power. And they want the society to be a more equitable, more fair kind of a society. And they look at something like this as, empowering kind of a profession. Okay. So yeah, IPS is a very common answer that I get.
Is this could be because they themselves are so empowered that they want their daughters to even be better?
See, I don't know whether they themselves are empowered. Okay. Now they feel that, or maybe they were not empowered before, so they know how it feels not to have that power, not to have that equitable place, and that's the reason why they want to fix it. Okay. So, and they now are understanding that it's possible. Okay. They don't have to just accept as the social norms or the conditions that they were growing up as a fait accompli. Okay, and they can themselves do something about it. So yeah, I mean, there is a lot of conversation about educating their girls. So IPS is a very common response I get. Teaching is a very common response I get, that they want their daughters to become teachers. Nursing was a very fresh thought. But yeah, these are the kind of things. Wanting to buy a plot of land, okay, was also something that came up. We never earlier had heard this aspiration from a woman that I want to own an asset in my name. Asset ownership was not something that I came across too many times, but of late I hear that. And this, I feel, is definitely a change, in the way they are looking at themselves, and there is a confidence that this is possible. Okay, it's no longer something remote and out of reach kind of a thing for them. Yeah.
The overall impact that Maya Pragati as a program has had on the lives of women, it's immense. Thank you so much, Maya, for being part of this conversation. It was very nice having this conversation with you.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed talking to you as well. Thank you.
We have known for quite some time that investing in women accelerates progress. Today, our conversation with Maya and the stories that came out of it reinforces it further. We at Sambodhi will continue to bring to you such rich perspectives and insights so that we continue to grow together for a better future.